Good day and welcome to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. Interface is where we take a deeper look into issues surrounding our society. In today's program, we have our guest, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, head of the Jamaica Constabulary Forces Corporate Communications Unit. Welcome, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Now, with the Christmas season well underway, because you see persons decorating and so forth, how is the JCF planning to ensure the public safety? Because we know the season and we know what usually happens. What is the JCF doing to ensure the public that you'll be safe, you'll be secure during this season?
Well, the JCF, we started from November by increasing our deployment. So we're doing increased deployment. So you will see additional police officers on the street right across the country, on the major thoroughfare as well as in public spaces and town centers. We're also using robust enforcement of the law to ensure that we have public order. Because one of the things that we see usually around this time, lots of public order issues, traffic violation, illegal vending, and those within themselves create additional problems for shoppers, business persons, as well as persons who just want to access some public spaces. So those are some of the areas that we will be focusing on. We know that it is the season when everybody wants to capitalize on what the season brings, additional shopping. So we have what's referred to as seasonal vendors. So they come out now. So in the normal scheme of things, there is space, and there are designated spaces for the day-to-day vendors.
Yes.
But then you have additional persons who will come out during this time and just see a space that they believe they should occupy. So we have been meeting with the local authority in Kingston, the KSAMC, as well as the local municipalities in the parishes, to iron out and some areas that can be temporarily designated as vending areas. And that has been happening. So persons who utilize those channels will be aware. We also have meetings with some of the vendors' representatives who have given their commitment to work, because enforcement is one thing, but the bigger outcome is compliance.
Yes.
We want persons to just work and comply as we coexist in a tight space.
So is it a case that for the vendors, if this area is designated for vending, anything outside of that area you would be asked to move, or?
Yes, you will be asked to move in the first instance, but if you fail to obey, then you will be prosecuted. And part of the prosecution is that their goods will have to be confiscated as evidence. So we really don't want to have to go that route. We really prefer if persons just abide by the rules, obey the law, remain in the designated areas, let it be a more organized. And sometimes they make more money, because when you're not in the right space, what you see is a constant running up and down all over the street between law enforcement and these illegal vendors. Whereas if they settle themselves in the areas that are designated, would really allow the police to focus on some other things, like the persons who are robbing and stealing from persons, and not having to be dealing with all these public order issues, which does take resources to contain when persons fail to obey.
That's true. You mentioned traffic. As you said, from November, you've deployed more police personnel on the road. Some members of the public can argue that, yes, we've seen an improvement in the traffic. Is not a standstill. It's not as bad as we had expected. But again, we're coming down to the season where this weekend up to, Tuesday's Christmas, this week to Christmas Eve, are there going to be more police personnel deployed? Because the traffic during that season is crazy, and we're expecting the traffic. So we just want to know what the police will be doing during that time.
Well, of course, we'll be doing traffic management on the roadways, but at the same time now, what you find is that traffic is something that you will have. It's a festive season. It's a time when more people are on the street. So people are just coming out. So we're encouraging persons to carpool. So you have a household with 7 cars and all of you going shopping. See if you can carpool, because what you will find is that you will have overflow at the shopping centers. They will not have adequate parking spaces for all the vehicles that come at once.
Oh, yes.
So everything will have to be properly planned out. So you don't want to get stuck in traffic, so you might want to choose a time when maybe go early, or don't leave everything to the last day to shop. Get some of the things out of the way so we have less vehicles on the road. Because when you have the overflow now with the shopping center, their designated parking area,
Yes.
persons are now forced to park on the streets or in other areas where security is not provided. And in those instances now, you have a higher risk of your vehicles being broken into,
Yes.
because you're now parked in an area that is not, where security is not provided for. So we encourage persons that even as you shop and you put away the goods that you shop for, don't just put them in the car that they're attractive to persons who are looking out. Because we are planning, the law enforcement side, we are planning, but the criminals are also planning. So we want persons, everything will have to be coordinated. So if you have a trunk, put it in there, because they'll break in your car because you leave your cell phone on the car seat.
Wow.
You leave your tablet or your laptop on the car seat, and they will break in it for it. You leave some expensive things that you've bought.
No, persons really do that?
All the time. And you'd be amazed to see they break into a very expensive car that is going to cost the owner a lot of money to be repaired, just to take a phone that maybe costs less than $10,000.
Wow.
So it's very important that persons become security and safety conscious when they go out. We want to say to parents as well that secure your car keys, because at this time of the year we tend to see the young people, the curious and the adventurous, to take away the cars and go. In many instances they don't have license.
Wow.
So we also see accidents. Unfortunately, some of them persons die. So it's a season. Our mission this year is to make you feel safe. We want when you go out there to see, because we know the effective presence of police officers give that assurance, and part of what we do is to reassure. In the event something happen, we don't want you to have to remain in traffic to be able to access a police officer.
Yes.
We want to have our police officers very accessible to you when you need them. We hope we don't have a lot of instances that we really have to call on them.
Yeah, because, well, wow. All right. So you mentioned some of the implementations, traffic, deployment, and you're urging the public to comply. Are there any other security measures?
All right, so we know that around this time, because of the increased shopping,
Yes.
persons are utilizing a lot more cash than normal. We encourage persons to use debit or credit cards if possible, but there are some persons who just want to use cash. So they carry the cash. So we say you have to find a way to be responsible in the management of that cash. We want persons to plan ahead of time. What is it that you intend to do? Where you're going to buy? Have an idea of what is it that you intend to purchase, so you can apportion your cash according to your expenditure.
Yes.
So you're not taking out large sums of money in the public domain. We also focus on the financial institutions. We know persons get their Christmas money via Western Union, MoneyGram. We want persons to be alert when they go to these places, because we have the banking all as well. Because we have seen instances where these criminals, because they're very organized, so they go to these places and they watch and profile people to see what kind of transaction they're doing.
Yes.
And the moment they leave the facility, they either track them down and rob them, or they await them. They use their telephone network to alert the person on the outside. So even as you're in the banking hall and you're in the line in a Western Union or a MoneyGram or any one of these financial institutions, pay attention to the persons around you. Are there individuals who are not moving in the line? They're allowing people to pass by and they're just there. You'll have to pay some attention, observe them, because they might be there just to stake out, watching you, to call out at the moment you move to say, here's one to attack. We say to business persons too that if you need to move cash, large sum of cash during this time of the year, you can utilize the police services. Just make arrangement with your local police and for them to escort you.
Oh, okay.
They will provide escort to the bank for persons who want to do lodgement, or if you have large payroll that you do in cash and you want to move money from the bank to a particular location, we offering those services that will allow you, give you the coverage to escort your cash from the bank to the location.
Oh, wow. So they can just contact their local police
and make the arrangements.
That's commendable. I think a lot of businesses should take that opportunity. We're up to our first break. Stay tuned, Interface. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. For those of you who are just joining us, in studio is Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Unit. Earlier before the break, we were discussing safety and security during this festive season. Now, SSP Lindsay was sharing the implementations of the plans since November up till now, and we're discussing not only the traffic plans, but also plans for the vendors and what we, the public, need to do to ensure that this is taken out, that this is done. So we know that crime and violence, well, persons usually say crime and violence increases during this period. You were speaking earlier about what we need to do, how we need to take precautions and carefully plan what we spend, and no cash, which I believe is convenient, but persons love bringing cash, as you said. But what else can we do, the public, apart from compliance? Because I remember you saying that's the major issue, compliance. You guys plan and you strategize, but it's left to the public to comply with it. What else can we do?
All right, so I think one of the things I want persons to do for the season is to make safety and security a part of the plan. So we usually see around this time of year, we see like robberies, we see simple larceny, housebreaking to some extent. Okay. So we encourage you that it's not, don't assume that because you're not in the hustle and bustle of things, then you are automatically safe. You have to do things to make yourself safe and to make yourselves less vulnerable to attack. So if you have to go on the road, even how you dress, we know that there's persons are looking for things that can be easily disposed of for cash. Oh. So your jewelry, you want to leave those expensive jewelry at home. Now if you're going to leave them at home, then you also need to secure them. So you don't just leave them close to a window that somebody can pry a window and steal them without even having to break into the house. You want to secure the house so that you harden the target, that persons don't break in. We know around this time of year, persons go on holidays. Yes. And they go on holiday and they don't tell their neighbors that they are going, but they're gone. So nobody's looking out for the place. And you normally have a pattern where people would see lights at the house, people would see cars parked, or people would see movement. They are not seeing that, so it tells them that something is, nobody's at home.
Nobody's there.
So they might see that as an opportunity if you don't have electronic security systems. Another thing that persons do that makes a lot of persons vulnerable is that they put every bit of information on social media. So people are able to track their every move. Yes. So you want to harden your targets. Even when you buy expensive appliances for your house, we recommend that you dispose of the boxes by cutting them up or tearing them up and putting them in plastic bags. So you don't put down a thing for a 100-inch television on the street like that, because the person, now you have something new. It might just motivate them to want to break in. So you want to tighten the security at home. You need to speak to the children if you have children at home, that let no one in. There are persons who will know that kids are there, younger persons are there, or persons who are not just paying attention, because it happens to adults too.
Yes.
Somebody turn up with a story and you give them access.
Oh.
And trust no one, whether male or female. There is this stereotype to believe that females are not a part of it. But unfortunately, we have seen instances where females play a very active role in the process. Most times they work as decoy.
Wow.
So they will be the ones who will come with the sad story and the children, so as to break down your security, and you let your guard down, and before you know it, here comes a man with a gun or more than one person. So be alert at all times. So we want persons to be very, very vigilant in those instances. When you're driving in traffic, we want to encourage you to lock your doors. Make sure the doors of your cars are securely locked at all times. Once you enter, lock the doors. This is to prevent persons from accessing your car whilst you're in traffic.
Yes.
Because we have seen instances where they get into your car and they order you out. They're stealing your car, or they're stealing things from your vehicle because you leave the door open, and they capitalize on the opportunity. Another thing we see, we get reports of persons driving in traffic, they're using their cell phone, and somebody ride up or walk up and snatch it. I would like to encourage persons to wind up your window,
Yes.
bring your windows up for the purpose of safety, so that you're not an easy target. We see a lot of motorcycles featured in a number of these instances, as well as certain types of motor cars. We usually get the color of the car. Sometimes we get the make. Most times we don't get the registration number, which is critical for identification.
Yes.
So we ask persons that if you ever become a victim of a robbery or hold-up, once the person has a gun, we ask you, if possible, not to fight back. It's better to allow them. It's hard to part with your property, but it's better to allow them to take the property, because we can recover from that. But we find that when you resist, they see that as a threat and will more likely retaliate with violence. So if they intend to take the property, what you should seek to do is to get some kind of description that you can explain to the police. The clothing is one, but it's not merely the best form of identification, because it can change. So you look for any significant feature on the face, any tattoos, any scars. If they talk, is there some voice, sound that if you hear that voice again, it's distinct, you can identify it. For vehicles, try to look at the registration number, if you can, and the number and the letters. So get that information. So as soon as you come out of the situation, if you have a pen or you still have your phone, if they didn't take it from you, just note that number somewhere, because you may forget.
Yes.
When you're frightened, you might just forget. But once you get the number, try to just make a note of it. If it's a group of you, more than one of you, you say, somebody get the number, somebody get the letter. So at the end of the day, you can say, I saw these numbers, these were the letters that's on the registration plate. That will aid us in the investigation. We know sometimes they switch these registration plates. However, the owners of those registration plates will have to account for it. Another thing I want to say to legitimate motor vehicle owners, we are seeing a number of privately owned motor cars featuring in robberies right across the country. Based on the investigation, we realized that private owners of motor vehicles are renting these vehicles to persons. So sometimes they don't know who they are renting to. So what they do is that they rent these vehicles and take them on robbery sprees. So they will do a robbery. In some instances, they'll abandon them after they do a spate of robberies. However, the owner of the vehicle will be featured in the investigation. It's your vehicle, so you have to account for it. So we recommend that you refer them to the registered rent-a-car companies so that they can do business with them. Because you don't want your privately owned motor vehicle to become an exhibit in a major crime.
Yes.
So we encourage persons to desist. We know they do it to make a little extra income, but there are consequences.
So you'd refer them to the major organizations
that are registered and properly licensed with the proper insurance to carry passenger to be a rented vehicle.
All right. I know all the plans are there. How confident are you that if complied, these measures will work?
I am very confident that if we comply, if we follow the rules, because if no laws are broken, there's no problem. So we are out there, we are respecting the rights of everyone because we're a force for good. We obey by the rule of law, so we want persons. So we are confident that if the vendors remain in the areas that they are authorized, if the vehicle operators use the designated parking spaces, if persons play their part in making themselves harder targets, less vulnerable to attack by just doing some simple things and following their instincts.
Yes.
And then if the police officers operate according to the briefing that they get to go out there and to maintain a presence, to enforce the law, to investigate matters, to be very polite and professional, and just to ensure that we carry out the rules of law in the way that we are trained and implement it, then we can guarantee that nothing will happen, but I am sure that we could eliminate and minimize a lot of the things that we see happening out there. If persons obey the road code, not drink and drive, be responsible when you drink, be responsible when you drive, just be responsible when you do anything for the season, I have no doubt that we can have a safe and festive season. I know that persons, there are recent amendment to the Noise Abatement Act. We'll see persons maybe partying a little later.
Yes.
I just want to say that it's the hours that were extended, but all the other things, so the distance in which the decibel that is required to play the music, that is still in place. The areas that are protected under the Noise Abatement Act, the infirmary, the hospital, the private homes, etc.,
Yes.
that's still in place. So what we want persons to do is not to abuse the privilege
Yes,
that they have been afforded, but to use it to their advantage. They have asked, they want a little more time, they want to enjoy themselves a little longer, they want a little more time to make some more money because the extra 2 hours will give them some more time for sale. So we have listened, I think the authorities, the legislators,
Yes.
they have listened. No, you don't want to let them down.
Exactly.
We want the citizens to comply, demonstrate that we can have these events, we can be responsible as promoters by adhering to the rules of law. So when consideration is given, they are in a position to say with some convincing
Yes.
tone, showing that we can regulate ourselves if given the opportunity. We're asking for more time, we're asking for more spaces. Here you have an opportunity until January 31st to demonstrate that. From the law enforcement side, it's important for persons to know that we still will take certain consideration before granting a permit. And the safety and security, that's one such consideration. So if an area is not deemed to be safe,
Yes.
if things are happening in a particular area, that if you grant a permit and have a gathering, there is the likelihood of persons coming there to shoot up an event or to attack people going to that event.
Yes.
Because we see how these criminals operate, they really don't care. So if we have that kind of information, we will say to the promoters that it will affect your event, because if we grant the permit knowing very well that this will happen, we are part of the prevention mechanism. So we want persons to just work with us. We are here to serve you,
Yes.
to support you. We're a force for good. We want to show respect to every single person that we encounter and operate within the rules of law. So from the Jamaica Constabulary Force, it's really what we want is to, for everyone, every stakeholder that has an interest in what they do, to protect that interest. And we should have a relatively good season. That's our hope. That's what we are working towards.
Yes.
And those are the outcomes that we set when we implement our strategies.
Okay. We're up to another break. Stay tuned. Interface will be right back. Good day. Welcome back to Interface. I'm Kimberly Broderick. In studio, I have head of JCF CCU, Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay. We're discussing safety and security during the festive season. Regrettably, SSP Lindsay, we've surpassed the 400 mark in road fatalities this year. How can persons prevent themselves from becoming a statistic, becoming a part of the road fatalities? Persons always, you were pointing to this before the break, drink responsibly. We don't, persons might drink more during the festive season, but what can we do to not become statistics? How can we encourage our family members to not? We've surpassed the 400 mark. What can we do to keep it to a minimum of what? By the end of the year, it's only about a week left, a week and some days.
So the first rule is to obey the Road Traffic Act. Most of the fatal accidents that we're seeing is a result of dangerous driving, careless driving, and speeding. Speeding is a major contributing factor to these to these accidents. So we say to persons that obey the road code. So you drive within the speed limit. You don't overtake in areas that are not designated for overtaking. And if you know the road code, you know that those are the clue you can use is that these are unbroken lines. So where you don't have an unbroken line in the road, it means that you are not supposed to overtake.
Yes.
So follow the road code. We also know that alcohol plays a role in some of these accidents because when we do the test, we find sometimes that the persons are driving under the influence of alcohol. So if you have to drink for the season, you have to have a designated driver. And when we say don't drink and drive,
excuse me,
we don't mean that you're drinking and driving at the same time, but once you're going to consume alcohol,
don't drive.
Do not plan to drive it. You are not going to be able to be fully in control of the vehicle because you're intoxicated.
Yes.
So we say don't drink and drive. If a group of you going out, decide which one is going to be the designated driver, and that person now should not engage in the alcohol consumption. No. Ensure that whoever is driving the motor vehicle is driving a vehicle that they are certified to drive. So if you have a license that allows you to drive a car, don't take a truck and try to drive it around because your competency level is not the same as the one that you're certified to drive.
Yes.
We also say that if you don't have a license, so a lot of persons know because you get a little rent-a-car around the house or a new car in the house, so you want to take a spin. So if you don't have a driver's license, you are not supposed to be driving on the road. And it is important to note that if we can prove that the owner for the vehicle allow you to drive it, that person can also be prosecuted for aiding and abetting.
Oh, yes.
So it is important that all those things are done to ensure that we don't have the fatalities. There are some sections of the roadway, we know the stretch on the highway, we see a lot of those. You have good roads, but it's to allow you to get to one place quicker. But at the same time, you have road limits, you have speed limits on the highways. So it's a little more than we have on some of the local roads.
Yeah.
But it is important that you don't test the capability of your vehicle on these roadways, because we know they have some very nice, fast vehicles.
Yes, they do.
It's not to test the capability of those vehicles. It's really to drive within the designated speed limit. And these speed limits are set over time based on history, statistics, and data. There are some locations that are referred to as bad spots. They are so designated because we see repeated accidents, fatal accidents, serious accidents happening at these particular locations.
Yes.
So when they do the mapping, they designate these areas and they set the speed limit that if you drive within this particular limit, then the likelihood of you getting into an accident, and more so a fatal accident, is significantly reduced. So some people see the stretch of road and they see the indicators because you have the numbers that are there to tell you whether it's 50, 80 or 100, but we disobey them all the time.
do we generally see an increased number of road accidents during the festive season?
Sometimes we do see accidents, and it's for the very reason I just mentioned, where persons are just they're caught up in the festivity, they're celebrating, but they're not doing it responsibly. So they are not paying attention to safety, security. So they get caught up in the hype of the season, but they forget the other things. It's no different. What used to happen from January to November will still happen during Christmas time, and more in some instances it's most likely to happen because of who are out there. There are criminals among us who they capitalize on those seasons, on the holiday season, for the very reason that they know that persons just let their guards down because it's Christmas.
Oh, so they capitalize on it. So you mentioned break-ins, robberies, road fatalities. Do we see an increase in murders and rape as well?
It varies. Okay. It varies because we have some season where we don't have a lot of major crime like murders and shooting, and because people are celebrating and people are home with families, so it's a different atmosphere. So we have had those seasons. We have had some where we're not sure what happened. We think people forget the season that we're in, that is really a season to show love and show care. So there is really no guarantee as to how these criminals will operate.
Yes.
So, but we prepare for the worst and hope and try to ensure that the best outcome is achieved. So we don't assume that they're going to behave. We said, well, having seen it before, it's a possibility that this could be a worst case scenario. So we start policing and putting in our strategies, planning for worst case scenario, but everything we do in terms of the tactics that we apply to those strategies to get a better outcome than a previous time.
All right, so do you have any other tips for both members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force? Because they're going to be hardworking. Yes. The hours, I assume, are going to be crazy. Do you have any tips for them? And then do you have any other tips for the general public?
All right. So for my colleague, for us in the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Christmas for us means work and more work. So when everybody celebrates and having a good time, we have to be working. And probably just want to speak to our families to say thanks for being understanding. Because I think police family, we're so deprived of time and everything. So most times during Christmas time, we don't get to do what other families do because we keep other families safe and we are out there protecting other families. So we want to say thanks to our families for putting up with us, for understanding the role we play in keeping a society safe, because whatever affects us, it also affects the family.
Yes.
So we want to thank our families, and I implore my colleagues that even in the midst of keeping everybody else safe, find some time to spend with the family. It's not always about the quantity time, but make some quality time, especially where you have the children involved.
Yes.
Make some time to share with the children and to ensure that even as we do what we do, we don't lose sight of the fact that at the end of the day, our families are the most important support base that we have as law enforcement officers. So that's for my colleagues. For the rest of Jamaica, I want to say to persons that we want you to go out there and to have a good time, be responsible. We want you to manage how you utilize social media, because social media is a good thing, but it can also put you at risk. Be careful how you respond to every offerings that you see, to shop online and to win things, because a lot of those are scams. So don't fall prey to those things. If you have not yet done the online shopping, maybe it is something that you probably don't want to rush into doing something now where they are trying to get people who are not organized, not focused, and then you get caught. You use your credit card to buy something from persons who are scammers, and then you end up with another problem come January. but it is our intention, it's what we are working for in the Jamaica Constabulary Force to ensure that every single resident of Jamaica and those who will access this beautiful country during the festive season will have a blessed and holy one. I'm saying to the persons out there who normally not show love, who normally exact violence act against each other, to just pause for a moment and recognize that it's not just about counting numbers. When we see the crime figures rise, every single number represents a life. Every single number represents a family that's broken and torn apart forever, because you can't reverse death. Yeah. So let us just make a resolve that for this season, we are going to reduce the incidence of violence among our fellow men. We are going to show love. We are going to learn to forgive. We're going to learn to forgive. We're going to learn patience. We're going to learn tolerance. And most importantly, we're going to show respect for each other, because it is through respect for each other that we protect each other. So it's about love, it's about safety, it's about protection, and it's about sharing and caring. And the Jamaica Constabulary Force continue to remind our citizens that we obey the rule of law. We show respect for each other because we are a force for good.
All right, we're up to another break. Stay tuned. We'll find out more about SSP Lindsay when we return. Welcome back to Interface. For those of you who are just tuning in, we have SSP Stephanie Lindsay, head of JCF's CCU. Before the break, we're discussing, she was just sharing a message to members of the force. And during the break, we were discussing how we've seen in the public persons fighting off law enforcers. We can't continue like this. SSP Lindsay, we've seen persons fighting off police. I remember the video of the policeman on the car, actually, because he told the person to stop. And I'm saying, but then it goes back to your point. If there's no respect, if there's no compliance, and there's breaking of the law, that's where the issue lies. Mm-hmm. So what can the public do to make it easier for police persons during this season and during all the season? Because we see them standing up tirelessly in the sun, I might add, for hours. Persons are not polite to them. They fight them off. They resist. What would you like to say to those persons?
All right. So I want to say to persons, police work is hard work, It's hard work. It's hard work. But I want to say to persons, because we're seeing the videos being circulated, mm-hmm. and of course, when we get them, we investigate them and we try to find the perpetrators and apprehend them. So there are times when people will see these videos being circulated and believe it's the end of it. It's not the end of it, because we pursue the investigation, mm-hmm. and we prosecute these individuals when we find them. Yes. But I just want to say to persons that you really don't want to be resisting and assaulting the police officers in the lawful execution of their duties. If you are being arrested and you are told of the offense for which you've been arrested for, we ask you to comply. Even if in your view, you're of the view that you should not be arrested, but the police arresting you because an offense has been detected, mm-hmm. or one has been reported. So you're going to comply with the police and go to the police station. From there will be other processes. You always have a redress, because that's why you have the court. So if you feel that you're innocent of what you are being arrested for, then that's where you go to the court, mm. and treat with it. Because to me, if you believe that you're not guilty enough of an offense, why would you want to go the route of assaulting the police, fighting off the police? Now you commit an offense, because it's an assault on the police. Assault, it's could be malicious destruction of property, could be other things. So you don't want to commit yourselves when you feel that you were being arrested for a breach that was not done. But police don't arrest you when you don't commit a breach. So,
Yes.
but this is where you go to the court. So we have seen a lot of those, and those are only the ones we see on video. It has become a regular feature. And we want persons to be reminded that our police officers are trained to defend themselves. There is no part of the briefing that suggests to a police officer that if your life is put in danger by a threat directly posed at you, you should not defend yourselves. We brief our officers to defend yourselves using sufficient force as is necessary. And when we say necessary, we mean that the type of response by way of force should be in accordance with the threat. So unfortunately, in some instances, the threats are as severe to the extent that the police has to resort to deadly force. That's a last resort for us. So when you're going to use a car to hit a policeman down, your intention is to kill him. So the police is going to respond and defend his or her life in accordance with the threat that is posed on the person. So we really don't want to see our citizens doing those things. For the season, I would like everybody who pass on the road and see a police officer, try to stop and say something nice to at least one police officer over the season. Pull up and say to them, officer, we appreciate what you do for us all year round. Officer, we think you're doing a good job today. Even if you didn't feel like that before, but you see them out there doing a good job. Just say so, make a commitment to just pull up and say something nice to a police officer from now until Christmas. I am sure it will mean a lot to us, because most times people are not saying nice things about us, but we want to hear the nice things being said about us. Say something nice to us. If it's even to say, officer, you know, today you're doing a good job, we want you to continue. Officer, you don't always do a good job, but we still appreciate the value that you had to our lives by keeping us safe. But make a commitment to say something nice to a police officer during the season.
I'm sure we'll go a long way and they'll smile and they'll appreciate it.
Of course, we like when, because many times, you know, that is not usually shown, but the approach of the officers are good. In few instances, you will see otherwise. And we are pushing, and that is where we want the public to help us to keep them in check. When you see the bad behavior, let us know, because it is not the standard of the JCF. It's not the standard, so we want to know when those things happen too. So report them. There are many ways. You can call 119. I was on the road. I saw this officer. I don't know the name, but he's wearing number so and so. If he's not wearing a number and he was in a vehicle, you say, well, I don't see a number, I don't see a name, but he is a part of vehicle, whatever letter and vehicle you see on that car, it will tell us which division the person is from. So if you see a C and some other number, if you see BC, you're from the St. Andrews Central halfway tree. So if you see BN, you're connected to Concert Spring, that kind of thing. So every number, if you're M something, you're from Clarendon. So every vehicle is attached to somewhere. So if you don't have the registration plate and you see that number on the side of the vehicle, call 119 and report, I was at this particular location and I saw this vehicle and the police officers in it were very nice. And if you see this vehicle and you believe that the police officers were very rude and unprofessional, we want to hear as well, because we want to maintain the standard every single day. And if we don't know what standard is being displayed out there, we may not have an opportunity to fix it. Because when we as the managers and the supervisors go there, we see the good things. So we don't get what members of the public report that they get. So they will have to share their experiences with us so that we can work to really, really make the Jamaica Constabulary Force a force for good, not just being said, but in how we carry out our affairs.
All right, and I think our viewers want to know, who is Stephanie Lindsay? Tell us, who is Stephanie Lindsay?
Well, Stephanie Lindsay, that's just me. I originate from Moko in Clarendon. Yes, I'm a Clarendon, Moko in Clarendon. And I have many sisters. I have a lot of sisters, about 7 sisters. And
7, wow.
yes, and I have 2 brothers.
Okay.
2 brothers. I have more girls in my family than boys. So we have a lot of sisters. Of course, I have 3 children of my own. I'm the mother of Brittany Clark, Bradley Clark, and Steshon Heard. So I have 3 kids.
Okay.
And they are the ones that keep me going every day. That's my support base, my cheerleaders. They're my cheerleaders, my children. So they keep me going. I've been a member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force for a very long time.
How long?
29 years.
Wow, that's a full-grown adult.
All my life. So even though I don't look it, because I'm not going to hear I don't look like I've served 29 years, but it's been I went straight out of high school, straight into the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yes, and I've done many other things. I'm also a trained teacher. I'm a Myconian.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yes. So I do that, but I love what I do as a member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force because it allows me to impact lives in a positive way. I've worked in many places. I've worked in various communities, and my passion is to do policing through partnerships. I love community policing.
Yes.
As a strategy, as a philosophy, because it allows me to get to the heart of the problem and work it from the base up. It allows me the opportunity to build a relationship with people who normally you don't get to encounter outside of
on a daily basis.
On a daily basis, especially those inner city people. When I work in the inner city people, and just to see how the little things that you do as a police officer, and how the big results that you get in the end, how you can take a youngster from the brink of a real gangster and to make them into a pastor.
Yes.
That's an accomplishment. I mean, one of my favorite pastime that I do, I did a lot of work earlier in my years, probably when sergeant to inspector in the Grand Spend community. And it's amazing to see when I will just go to Grand Spend and just drive up my car in a corner and see some of the youngsters, and you hear them calling out everybody, oh, Miss Lindsay's here, Miss Lindsay's here, because I've done so much work with some of those persons and how the change and the transformation. So I love what I do because it allows me to really touch lives.
Yes.
It's not just about a profession and a job, it's a passion. I'm very passionate about what I do. I love the JCF. I love to see the JCF looks good. And I live my life every day. Everything I do, even when I'm not on duty, I'm very aware that whatever I do must let the JCF looks good.
Yeah.
So that's me in a nutshell. I mean, I have my mother, Miss Lynn. She lives in Clarendon. No, she's just very proud of me.
Oh.
You know, very proud of.
She should.
We never have a perfect life, but we have learned through our experiences to turn adversities into possibilities and to rise above challenges to achieve greatness, because I consider everything that has been afforded to me,
yes,
maybe not deserving of everything, but every opportunity that I've gotten in life is as a result of somebody making a sacrifice for me to have it, somebody making a decision for me to be at a certain place, to do certain things. And even when they are challenging days, I just look and say, those are my Daniel moments. You know, there's the Bible story, Daniel, or the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego moment. If you never get thrown into the fiery flame, how are you going to know that you're going to survive? Exactly. If you never get thrown into a difficult situation, it's not about the situation, it's your ability to rise above those challenges. And every bad thing that happened to you in life should make you stronger. I remember having like tutors and persons who inspire me along my journey will say something bad happened, and the question, what do you make? Was there any lesson in that? And I used that. Another thing, first encounter I had with Commissioner, I think it was one of the first address to us as police officer, and he made a comment, you should never waste a crisis. And it has resonated very well with me through work, to my personal life. And when I have to talk a lot to persons who are going through difficult situations, because I mentor a lot of people, I think I have the ability to reach people. So every situation in life, good or bad, should be one that empowers you to impact you so that you can impact others. So every encounter with somebody should be, you should try to make it a pleasant and impacting one.
And that's the reason you chose the JCF.
And that's why I chose the JCF, because everybody thought I was going to be a teacher, a teacher, a preacher.
Or all three.
But I think I will have the opportunity at some time. Well, I'm two already.
Okay.
And I've not ruled out the other one because it's part of my upbringing.
Yes.
But my grandparents, we had church, a real church girl.
Yes.
Very spiritual. God has done so much for me in life that in a little while, I'll be doing more than I'm doing now.
I anticipate that. All right, thank you so much. That was SSP Stephanie Lindsay, head of JCF's CCU. It was a pleasure having you here, SSP Lindsay. We were discussing safety and security during the festive season. You guys have to be safe. Remember to give a word of encouragement to the law enforcers. They're sacrificing their time to protect us, and just have a superb and safe festive season. Thank you so much for being here, SSP Lindsay. On behalf of my editorial and production teams, I'm Kimberly Broderick. That's it for Interface today. Pleasant viewing.